And it's breaking news time. Of course, we've been talking about it all morning, but now it's official. The UK has voted by 52% to 48% to leave the European Union after 43 years in an historic referendum. London and Scotland voted strongly to stay in the EU, but the Remain vote has been undermined by poor results in the north of England. Voters in Wales and the English shires have backed Brexit in large numbers. The pound fell to its lowest level against the dollar since 1985 as the markets reacted to these results, and certainly our markets also. No doubt going to have a major reaction when they open this morning. Already the currency down 7% this morning. Dan Whitehead is our correspondent. He, of course, following this very, very closely in the UK. He joins us now. Dan, what a result. I mean, it was a very difficult one to call, but it seemed that markets believed when they closed yesterday that the vote would go in the opposite direction, but it's taken us by surprise.
Yeah, it has. And actually, when the polls closed last night, the unofficial on-the-day polls were showing that the Remain camp had won this. Ironically, those polls were showing the percentage point in the other way to what the reality is this morning. And that reality is that the British public are waking up to a future outside of the European Union. As you say, 52% of the British public have voted to exit the EU compared to 48%. It was close, but the Leaves have won it. Nigel Farage, the head of the UK Independence Party, a political party which has spent its entire past fighting to leave the EU, has said that the dawn is breaking on an independent UK and that this is a victory for ordinary, decent people right across the UK. He's giving a press conference in around an hour's time, and we'll also, of course, be hearing from David Cameron just down the way on Downing Street about exactly what the next steps are. And of course, no one exactly knows just how this is going to work out. What we do understand is that David Cameron is going to have to implement Article 50 of the Lisbon Treaty. That is a clause in Europe which simply means that a country can start that negotiation period to exit the EU. But there are so many ramifications over the next 24 hours, whether it comes down to the economy and politically in the government. A lot is going to happen in the coming hours.
I mean, Dan, let's just focus a little bit on a few things. Let's start off with markets, because, I mean, this, of course, is the most obvious thing now. I mean, we're seeing markets trading. The Bank of England, I know, is getting involved where it can before the markets open this morning. Even in Asia, there's huge scrutiny while markets are trading, because there's just seems to be a lot of problems and free fall at the moment on the markets. But, you know, what is the worry? This is a big moment that, as it's been described, is uncharted territory.
And that is the reason why we're seeing the pound fall against, to be honest, pretty much everything. A 31-year low against the dollar at the moment. Unprecedented events. And I think it's simply because we don't know, and this is uncharted waters. No European country has ever left the Union. And that is what is causing this huge volatility on the markets. Looking up at Big Ben there, of course, we're only an hour and 40 minutes away from the UK markets opening here. And it is, of course, predictable that we're going to see huge drops on the FTSE 100, and as you say, we're already seeing the effects on sterling at the moment, and that is likely to continue throughout trading. That was not a surprise if the Leave was going to win. That was expected as one of the immediate impacts, an immediate barometer of the instability that investors will be feeling, and the ramifications, of course, on the markets around the world. And that's simply how those financials markets work. The ripple effect is what we're seeing now.
And the talk as well, of course, is a divided nation. And I mean, if you look at the figures coming through, obviously, as we mentioned, 52% voted to leave, but 48% voted to stay. So this is now a very, very divided Britain. I mean, the way forward is going to be a tough one as well for the entire UK to actually, I suppose, come together as one now.
this isn't just about the EU referendum. This is going to change the political landscape of the UK, because those who have been spearheading for a Brexit are from parties who have a full, wide-ranging, different attitude to many of the parties which have been campaigning for the Remain. And you only have to look at the UK Independence Party, which has just risen over the last 2 to 3 years with this migrant crisis. So this isn't just about a simple leaving of a club in Europe. This will now change the face of British politics, and we may well see that face change in the next couple of hours. There's already rumours of just how long David Cameron can stay in his position as Prime Minister. Talks of some of the senior cabinet ministers potentially moving in as leaders. Michael Gove, the Justice Secretary. No one knows what's going to happen exactly. We do know that a large number of MPs have backed David Cameron, because what the country does need, whatever side of this argument you want, is stability, and we will see what David Cameron has to say when he comes out on Downing Street, as I say, in a couple of hours' time.
Dan, just let's get some reaction as well, and we'll start wrapping up shortly. But we see Germany, obviously, Germany coming out saying this is a sad day for Europe. To quote, in fact, damn, exclamation mark, a sad day for Europe. However, we are seeing other members of the European Union. I've just, from what I've been reading, France, some of the opposition there in France saying it's time now, we also want to have a referendum to leave the EU. The Netherlands, also opposition calling for a referendum in the Netherlands to leave the EU. They want to follow suit. So this is seeming to have started a wave of other things to come as well within the European Union.
And that was the fear of the Remain campaign, that we could see the breakup of the EU as we know it. And, you know, we will see a lot of scare stories in the coming hours, and those in the Leave camp will hope that that settles down. But it's not surprising we're seeing those calls from other European countries. We're also seeing it within the United Kingdom. Nicola Sturgeon, the First Minister of Scotland, said that this result makes clear that the people of Scotland see their future inside the EU. All 32 regions of Scotland voted to remain part of the European Union. Does that mean we could now be seeing another Scottish referendum, with Scotland breaking away from the UK and joining the EU separately? There are so many ifs and buts and unknowns in this. But yes, of course, across many other European countries, there are going to be big questions asked about the future of the EU now that Britain has voted to leave.
All right, Dan, we're going to have to leave it there, but we certainly will be crossing to you hopefully again during the programme to get another update from you. Of course, that breaking news story that we're talking about this morning is the fact that Britons have voted to leave the European Union. The figures that we have, 52% to 48%. It was a very close call, but the reactions are coming in fast and furiously. And as we heard from Dan Whitehead, this is very uncharted waters that the Europe finds itself in, and certainly the pound taking an absolute hammering this morning. So it remains to be seen when the markets open what actually does happen. That'll happen in about an hour and a half from now in the UK, as well here in South Africa. Remember, there's talk of our currency that has already dropped about 7% since this announcement. So we are going to have a very, very busy day ahead here on this Friday, I suppose a historic Friday.